Is it we you're looking for? You've been wondering where we are. You've been wondering what we do when we aren't making podcasts.
Doobie-doo.
Be-do.
Hello.
Hello, we are back.
Dancing on the ceiling.
Practically dancing on the ceiling, needing
Yeah.
to be peeled off the ceiling. Welcome back to Blighty Day Fiance. We have not been pumping out these episodes consistently, but we are back.
Shh. We've been putting them out consistently. There is something wrong with their podcatchers.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Interesting.
Stick to the story.
All right.
Your app broke. I'm sorry, guy. Sorry.
Now
Get onto
people are
Apple.
going to want to know where the lost episodes are. So your story doesn't make sense because why else would we be doing a toe wrap up?
You're right. Okay.
My name is Michelle.
I'm Robin. Hello.
Robin is my antagonist in chief / husband.
Michelle is my perfect wife.
Thank you. And we recap TV shows about relationships.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. If you are not watching The Ultimatum Queer Edition, and I'm sorry if I've got that title wrong, you ought to be. It is excellent. It is a breath of fresh air. It is the most interesting dating show I have seen in years. It's fascinating. And if we had time, we would cover it. Today, we are going to be doing a wrap-up of Toe.
A toe cap.
A toe cap. And we are going to talk a little bit about Scandival for those of you Patreonies who were upset that the show that I made Robin watch for our brand new Patreon only content was Selling Sunset and not VPR. Okay, so that's not to say that we won't watch a Vanderpump episode in future, but I would like it to be a classic episode.
But we'll do a bit of Vanderpumping at the end of this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we will.
Yeah.
So without further ado,
Having said that, I do want to say thank you everyone for bearing with us. We know that our coverage of this season of Toe was a little bit here, a little bit there. Life got in front of us. You all know why. But we're going to do our best to sort of be a little bit more meticulous about these things because we do love it. And hopefully regular service resumed with before the 90 days. Yes, because I'm sure that they're going to be talking about local birds, and that is my favorite topic of conversation.
And I am so excited for Gino and Jasmine to come back. So let's get right into it, shall we? Let's kick off proceedings with Nicole and Mahmoud.
You know what? The vast majority of people on this reunion went down in my esteem. Very few people went up. But she is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought she came across great. She looked great.
I agree.
I'm loving the P-Chick necklace. Loyal listeners will know who P-Chick is.
Yep, me too.
I think she was paying homage to P-Chick with that. He was a small boy throwing a tantrum in a supermarket because his mummy wouldn't buy him the trainers he wanted, which is always a joy because he is a child. But yeah, she came across significantly less dazed and confused than usual. And I quite liked her in her kind of, slightly bolder form. It was good.
Yeah, she seemed a lot more confident and comfortable in herself. I enjoyed the fact that she didn't gleefully throw him under the bus like a lesser woman might have. And, she obviously foresees a future with him, at least in the Matt Sharp-averse.
Yeah, I mean,
sense.
they're made for. There's more milk and honey there, right?
Yeah, they've been seen to be a VEC camera crew in the United States.
Oh, they have
yeah,
they?
They have.
Okay, right.
So, I didn't think there were any huge revelations there. I don't have a problem with the way he was talking to that other woman. I don't think that his intention going into it was to be flirtatious. I would be annoyed if somebody asked me my age, but that kind of, chat is part of doing business, particularly when you work in a trade.
Yeah,
right?
and totally when like all trade is like black market.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's all a bit like there's a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who can get you some TV. Like he's not a TV salesman by profession, is he?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
He's a fabric salesman.
Right, but in that part of the world and that culture, you grift, right? Graft and grift. Is that the wrong word? Maybe it's the wrong
Grift
word.
is
Grift
not
is
the
a
right
con,
word.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But you do what it takes to survive, right? Because life is pretty tough,
Mm-hmm.
And, if you come across an opportunity, then, and a little bit of even flirtation. I don't think it was flirtation, but I think a little bit of asking I've done it myself, a few personal questions, shave off 10% here, 10% there. Nice. That's how it works. It really is. Like, before you accuse him of like emotional infidelity, I want to know the starting price for those TVs and the final price.
Me too. I don't think that there was any form of infidelity there. I think she was willfully misconstruing the content of those messages. And
or she was put up
them.
to it by,
Sure, because maybe they said, look, we're fucking sick to death of hearing about
Islamic dress code.
Right.
Yeah. And so am I. And I wish that Gabe hadn't dragged that one on and on and on and on and on.
My Norwegian bestie from film school taught me an expression where if someone is too hot in their shirt, it means that they are overconfident to the point of arrogance and slightly overstepping, what's considered to be their own business.
Yeah.
I feel that Gabe was a bit hot in his shirt.
Well, he looked like a boil in the bag. Do you remember boil in the bag cuisine?
Yeah, sure.
Like the days before, like microwave ready meals.
I remember boil in the bag rice.
Yeah, but you used to be able to get entire meals that were sealed plastic bags that you would boil for a bit. Yeah,
so
it's super gross. Yeah, he looked like one of those. Or to be honest, what he looked like is like America. It was always referred to as TV dinners, and we don't have that here, right? But they were always foil covered meals. Are you familiar with what a TV dinner would be?
Yes, I am familiar with what a TV
It's exotic to me because we didn't have...
Both my parents worked.
Right. We didn't have things that looked like that here. And I was always like, oh, in America, food is spacey. But he looked like a TV dinner in his sort of shiny silver suit. And he did look like he was very hot in his shirt. He always looks quite sweaty, doesn't he, Gabe?
Yeah, I think he sweats a lot.
Yeah.
Look, no huge revelations with Gabe and Isabel either. Didn't feel any particular need to hear from Hello Irrelevant, his friend who's supposedly they were so close and the relationship has since broken down because Isabel is so controlling.
He's met this guy like 3 times and it's a non-event. What I will say is so much of their season was all about his trans identity and all of that, and the technicalities of physical transitioning, all of that. But none of that at the reunion was covered. All that was covered was that stuff, like the fact that he's not ready to be married, and the stuff with his sister.
Are you kidding?
Am I wrong?
They talked for 40 minutes about how his dick works.
Okay, they talked about that, but so much was on like, would he be accepted by the family and stuff? But like, that wasn't.
Well, he was.
He was. I guess there's nothing more to say.
There's nothing more to say.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I guess her parents didn't want to be on the show or something, because you would have expected that they would have been on. But again, maybe like it's too nice.
Maybe they were and they cut it.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Because nothing
If
happened.
they're there for filming for 10 hours, inevitably there's some stuff that doesn't make it in, right?
But the main thrust of their stuff was his sister. What's she called? Monica?
Yeah.
Yeah. Monica looked good.
Yeah, Monica's a very beautiful woman, as is Gabe's mother, who I often can't tell them apart. Monica shared that the reason she didn't come to the wedding was because she and Gabe had a conversation where she says he accused her of being the reason why his past relationships had failed. I shaved my head before my sister's wedding to annoy her.
Dark, I didn't know that.
This was a long time ago. I did. I ruined my hair. I looked like an idiot.
Oh my. But you still fucking went.
Yeah, I did. Because I would never not go to my sister's wedding.
Even my sister came to our wedding.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. Which is something.
It is.
Because you don't not go to a wedding.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. You can shoot. I can't make another Archduke Ferdinand. I did that on the Patreon earlier today. I was like, you can shoot an Austrian prince.
Yeah, sure.
But don't go to a wedding. That'll start a world war. You can't do it.
Speaking of weddings, sorry to digress for just a moment, but the princess of Jordan was married recently, I think this past week.
Uh-huh.
And my dad had met and gotten to know the Queen of Jordan, Rania, who I think is one of the most stunningly beautiful women who has ever lived.
Okay.
I mean, she looks like a movie star. She is gorgeous. Anyway, I bring this up because obviously Wills and Kate were invited to the wedding, and there is a video that someone took where Kate is sort of saying hello to the bride, and it's that bit, they call it the receiving line, right? Where everybody lines up and, you know, says congratulations and thanks for inviting me and all the rest. And he said something like, all right, move it along. Something like that. Quite rude. Yeah.
He's such a dick, isn't he?
He is such a dick.
I cannot wait for history to reveal just who he is.
I know.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Speaking of which,
magnificent.
there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make it into the press, and if you want to know more about that, Elliot and I are going to be discussing it. I say we're going to be discussing it. He is going to be defending, denying, deflecting, and I am going to be speaking the truth of what has been largely understood and accepted for many years about those two. Right. So anyway, if you're
royalty
into that,
on the Patreon, patreon.com/BlyTheDay.
Yep.
Good. Yeah, Gabe totally overextended himself. His storyline was really not terribly interesting anymore. The sister was awful. Because you really can't do that. Having this whole, you're the reason why my relationships failed. No, Gabe. She may have had opinions about things, but you are also free not to be so damn codependent that you listen to everything that your sister says.
But how do you know she even said that?
Right.
That's the thing. I don't trust either of them.
I don't trust either of them.
But look,
either.
they seem
I think they have a really weird, strange, odd, dysfunctional, slightly incesty, weird relationship. I mean, non-sexualized, but they're too close, and it's odd. But I wonder if that's what can happen when someone is trans. You made the really interesting point, which reminded me of a point that I think Jake made on Reality Gaze. It may have been Matty, which is when you come out to your parents, they have to grieve the loss of the, that person is gone, and that isn't a hostile thing necessarily. But you have to build a whole new relationship. You also have to allow them a bit of time to grieve the loss of what they thought was, right? And I'm sure the same thing happens with, trans people, right? You need to show a little bit of grace to the other person there because they've lost and rebuilt. And I think that's why their relationship, maybe there's other reasons, but maybe the relationship is really fucking super screwy because of something like that.
Yes, I think and look, I want to be absolutely clear about this because this is an issue where nuance is required, right? And it is not a you're with us or against us thing, okay? We unequivocally, completely support LGBTQIA plus, whoever you are, however that presents. We love you. You will always have all 8 of our octopus tentacles to wrap yourselves in. We love you and support you. And it's often an argument that I have seen come up quite frequently as well. If you're a parent and you don't immediately accept your trans child or your gay child or whatever, that means that grief is a sign of non-acceptance. But I think when a change like that happens, the grief is necessary and it's a part of the acceptance.
Yeah.
Because you can't pretend that you didn't give birth to a girl or a boy or raise a son or a daughter and you had an idea of who they were going to be. Grieving that doesn't take away from any of the love that you have for them.
No.
And I think, I do genuinely believe that Monica, I get the impression, and I'm sorry if they addressed this and I just missed it, but they talk about
I don't believe they did.
They talk about it was only us growing up and it's just us. So I wonder if there's been some non-acceptance from other family members and if the family has shrunk as a result of Gabe.
Yeah, well, certainly no one else seemed to have been invited. Yeah, it's, again, I don't want to use over strong language, but if we're going to be super blunt about it, she lost a sister and she's scared of losing a brother.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, thank you. You put it much more succinctly. I probably didn't. And look, please correct me if I'm wrong about any of this. I am open to all of that. My DMs are always open, okay?
Yeah, but her actual behavior was garbage and completely out of line.
It was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of garbage and out of line.
Yes, please.
Chris and Jamie.
I did a little fart there. Do you think it came out on mic?
I think we can keep it in. Can I tell our listeners, if you're not new to the show,
and if you're not one of the Irritable Bowel Syndicate.
Right. I was just going to say, you know about the Irritable Bowel Syndicate. Now, I had a very difficult week last week.
You're going to do this?
And because I think it's, you know what? It's more, visibility is important, okay?
It was pretty visible.
You didn't see it, so you don't know what you're talking about, okay? I took a bath, had a nice long soak, at the beginning of the day, which is sometimes what I need in order to start the day. Got my bath salts happening, soothes my skin. I sat up and saw beneath me a tiny, flat, penny-sized turd. Yeah. That I had squashed. And I don't know, I did not fart in the bath, so it didn't come out then. I must have shat my pants, and it was a clinger that came out subsequently.
Oh, dingleberry.
Yeah. I'd like to think that my asshole isn't so hairy that I get dingleberries, but it may have been a passenger on the SS Hemorrhoid, okay?
Right.
I don't know, but I was so grossed out. I cried. I was really upset. It wasn't good. What were we talking about?
Well, I did a little fart. Who are we going to do next?
Yeah, Chris and Jamie.
Oh, God. Well, Chris is, I think, the most repugnant person that's ever been on any 90-day show. Can we agree on this?
Hard disagree.
Ooh.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
For one.
You're right.
Big Pred.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's.
No, you're right.
Others.
Okay, no, yeah. Of course, I'm over exaggerating, aren't I? Because recency bias and all that. She's in that league. She's pretty damn close.
Yeah, she's a liar.
The only reason she's not at the Pred, for me, Angela, I have huge problems with Angela, as regular listeners will know.
Right.
The only reason she's not at that level is she's not been on the show long enough, frankly. I can't see the more exposure to her wouldn't make me dislike her more and more. She's deeply, deeply, deeply unpleasant.
I agree.
Good.
I think that, and I was very disappointed that her mother came to make excuses for her and take cheap shots at Jamie.
Yeah.
I think for her mother, who we thought was pretty cool and reasonable, for her to...
I love a tolerant Christian.
Right.
Right?
But it wasn't it was neither tolerant nor Christian to scapegoat this woman that she doesn't know and has had no interaction with. Now, that isn't me saying that Jamie is some perfect angel, because I'm sure she's a liar too. It takes two particularly delusional individuals to enter into a relationship of this kind, where they both have very lofty expectations of the other that, but
they were going to get married 9 days after meeting.
Right, but that don't bother to establish whether this is, actually a shared vision, or whether I think it
was always a fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would add to that they never listened to each other and never asked important questions.
Well, they didn't listen to the reality. Like, things happened that they just went, oh, okay, I'll let it go. Like Chris disappearing for 20 days.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And then 5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? When we first met them, this had happened before, but had been overlooked. And so when it happened again, worse, for longer, for that to have come as any surprise, maybe don't marry someone if they've done something like that until you've had a time to live with them and make sure they're not going to do it again. That's all.
It's really interesting. I was thinking about, there's definitely a Jerry Blank from Strangers with Candy element to Chris, but not fun or clever, like the darker side of being, not my words, a junkie whore. That's a quote from Strangers with Candy, okay? I'm not saying Chris is a junkie whore.
No, come at Amy Sedaris.
Yeah, that is a brilliant show, by the way. But I'm also reminded of how in the early seasons, and pump heads will remember this.
Your pumpkin.
Yes, my Vanderpump kin will remember this, that for a time, Sheena Shea constantly had, or sorry, she's Sheena Marie now. But Sheena constantly had an injury. She was constantly on crutches. One time she had like a contact lens that scratched her eye. One time she had stepped on a piece of broken glass, but she was like Sharon from Kath and Kim, where there was always an injury on Sheena.
Yeah.
And I think Chris is a lot like that. I think that if, I'm sure that she was vomiting on the way to the studio, but it was probably because of withdrawal and not because she was sick. She was dope sick, maybe. And no judgments there. Again, she is in the area that she lives, I'm sure, is prime territory for an opioid crisis. And my deepest sympathies lie with everyone who is a victim of the Sackler family, who are now immune from prosecution.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to look into that after the show. By the way, if you want to listen to a really fascinating podcast, there's a great podcast on the Ringer Network, 60 songs that describe the 90s, which I think they're now on 120 songs because, hey, what's the title? But they had Courtney Love on very recently talking about Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. If that's your era, I can't, like, the guy who does this show is,
and even if it's not your era, Courtney Love is incredible.
Absolutely, she is a hero, an absolute she's whip smart, and I've always loved her. But yeah, the guy who does the show is delightful. It's a brilliant show, but she makes the point, like, we were portrayed as brats, like smacky, heroin-y, opioid brats. Pretty sure the Pacific Northwest was like ground zero for this shit, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that we think of, like, Courtney in particular, because, hey, she's a woman, but Kurt also as being, junkies. Actually, they were the victims of Sackler.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a sadder story than you might think. I cannot recommend that podcast enough. It's a delight from beginning to end. But yes, Chris has a shade of that about her. And, she's not alone in that. And in that sense, she is a victim.
Yes.
And it makes me dislike her marginally less. But I'm always going to be predisposed to really disliking anyone that treats people from another country as money grabbing,
yes,
so and so, and
absolutely,
and that her mother did it too, and that it came down to looking at the fucking PayPals. I'm just saying, and this is on Sean as well, to be honest, it's really gross. And if she had been American, you wouldn't be asking to see her financial records and that.
Yeah, that really upset me too. I know that you were disappointed that Debbie was defending Chris, and I want to speak to that for a moment.
I was disappointed with a lot of the sides that Debbie took, and I know you think she was just siding with the underdog, but I don't think she did side with the underdog more than once.
Okay. I'm just saying that I think Debbie, being who she is, recognized that somebody, because regardless of the reasons behind it and whether she will ever take accountability for it, Chris is in pain.
Yes.
And I was saying this about Rachel from Vanderpump Rules. When she's watching Sheena absolutely devastated, losing her shit and crying, and has no reaction to that, I think Debbie is overly empathetic. And when you see someone suffering, regardless of whether they put themselves there or not, there are people in this world who want for that person not to be suffering.
Yeah, you're right. And Jamie's sense of suffering isn't quite so on the surface.
No. And Jamie's
and yet
much
she
better
has
off.
Suffered much more in this
Yes,
relationship.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. Chris is in a much worse position than Jamie will ever be in.
Should we tread over my little conspiracy theory from, I think, the first episode of the reunion? Maybe the second. The real reason Chris had to go back, her son and the troubles, and her son getting into drug problems and being arrested and whatever. And my theory, dear listeners, is that her dad's motorcycle didn't steal itself. And the court case that she had to go back to may not have been a complete random stranger. Yeah, I'm just putting it out there because it always seemed really weird. Like, why do you have to fly? Like, we said at the time this testimony couldn't. The prosecution couldn't go ahead without your testimony as the holding relative of it. It was irrelevant. She didn't need to be there for it unless it was her son. Not done any research. So I can't say it for sure. I'm just saying that entire family is a motorcycle crash.
The last thing I want to say is I can't believe she gave her father's ashes to Jamie, I think knowing that she was never going to come back. That's messed up.
But I don't know that she did know. That's the thing. I think Chris is just a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And it is possible to hold two thoughts at one time.
Agreed.
Or to hope you could be a different person, and yet inevitably you are dragged down into the mud every time.
Let me let you in on a little secret, particularly to our less seasoned listeners. Wherever you go, there you are. You cannot move to a new country and expect that your problems won't follow you, including bankruptcy, which I think is a brilliant segue to
the Poison Dwarf
and Johan.
Yep.
The Poison Dwarf.
I really enjoyed him taking back his power. And look, I know he did it in ways that were slightly misogynistic, and ways, or maybe ways that were kind of unpalatable in many ways, and the pleasure he took in her discomfort was a bit gross and everything. But I do like the fourth act of a play, and I do like it when things turn around.
Yes. I also think that both things can be true. He can hold misogynist views, beliefs, what have you.
Although those views are part and parcel, to some extent, of the society he lives in, which is
patriarchal.
It's patriarchal, but it also doesn't... Being good and open and decent and all the things that we hold dear is a lot easier when you're not struggling to survive.
That's right. That's right.
But life is really fucking tough. So in some parts of the world. And so you don't necessarily have the luxury of the touchy-feely stuff that's so important to us. And I'm not saying that equality and everything is a touchy-feely issue. Please don't get me wrong. But it's, things have to be, everyone has to suffer in some parts of the world, right? And he suffers too.
Mm-hmm.
But her notion that her suffering to any degree or compromising in any way is an infraction on her rights as a woman is bullshit. It's bullshit.
I agree. I have since seen an Instagram reel of hers or part of it because I can't stand to watch her for more than a few minutes at a time, to be honest, where she talked about him abusing her mentally, physically, emotionally, sexually, financially.
Does anyone ever break up with anyone on TV these days without saying all of the above? I just think it belittles people that actually go through these kinds of experiences. And look, maybe she did, but
I don't know what she went through. What I saw,
it's not what I saw. Yeah.
what I saw from her and what I think could have happened in a different way. And she was purposefully, I think, always trying to turn the issue into, oh, I'm not allowed to have any friends. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the issue. That was a smokescreen. It wasn't even, I'm not allowed to have male friends.
Nope.
What he didn't want is for her to one time not put her male friend before her husband.
Yeah, you're right. Like, he dug his heels in over something I don't think he cared about that much. But he just wanted to see if he could ever have a say. And he chose that particular hill
It's not
to
even
stand on.
I don't even think it's about seeing if he could have a say. I think he was being truthfully, I think he was being vulnerable in that moment and thinking, this is how I feel about this.
Right.
I'm sure she didn't ask him how he felt about it.
Okay, I'm insecure.
Yeah.
It upsets me.
I'm insecure. It upsets me. I would rather that you didn't do this. But because of the way that she speaks to him, and she speaks to him like he's a child, and everything is, the stakes couldn't be higher. And
I'm going to do
has
this.
be-
Now, what are you going to do?
Yes,
about it?
exactly.
That's how they both talk to each other.
But he just put that back on her. He said, okay, you can do that, but there's going to be consequences.
Yeah.
The consequences are not that he's going to physically beat her up or, the consequences are that he is going to feel betrayed and upset to an extent where he feels justified in humiliating her. Now, I don't agree with how he handled it, and I vehemently dislike her and disagree with her on, pretty much everything.
Yeah, but we all felt sorry for her at that dinner, right?
Yeah.
None of us agree, I don't think. I don't even think he agrees with how he behaved there. But tell me what other options were available to him.
Right.
Like, it's a little bit like the thing we were going to talk about and then we didn't talk about with the oil protest and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, at some point when you say, like, the climate situation is so bad that billions of people are going to die, at some point you might need to start barricading some roads, right? You might need to do
Sure.
right? Because you've asked nicely many, many, many times. And I think you could legitimately say that Johan asked nicely to have a say in that relationship many times.
Yeah.
And eventually, the only way you can have an impact is to do it in front of other people. Right? Because she doesn't give a shit about what you think, but she does give a shit about how she looks in front of other people.
That's right.
Right?
That's
So he
right.
had to do something in public. Let's not forget, and this is where I was disappointed in the show and Sean Robinson, as I usually am. They really, really focused on that and, irrelevant Pegan Michael P. Which for me was a side note, all of that stuff.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
But they totally glossed over the first half of the season, which was she got off the plane, sat in the first, made a big fuss about him driving, right? And
No, the first thing was he should have known
to
not
get a
to
different
bring the
car.
Yeah.
Right. So immediately he's done something wrong before he's even done anything at all. But then on that very journey, she's like, oh yeah, we're going to live here now. Which was not the arrangement in any way. Like, I don't want to get all Osama about this, but the arrangement was not that they were going to live in the DR, right? But she just presents that as a fait accompli, right? And then you have that whole storyline about her humiliating his business, right? So through the whole season, we've seen this man be endlessly patient, actually, right? Endlessly patient. And he could have snapped over any one of those things. So before we sort of paint him as this controlling monster. Look how far he bent before eventually he just thought,
yeah,
what do I get from this?
uh-huh.
What am I getting from this relationship? If I'm going to be treated like shit, I'll be treated like shit by a local girl, you know? But the really interesting thing there is the financial stuff. And this idea that, again, because she's American, the idea is that she's payrolling him in some way. I never thought that was the case. We all know about her finances, right? She ain't got two shits to rub together. So, again, to bring that out because, you know, her skin is lighter than his, so surely she's paying more. I don't think it's true. I believe him entirely. I think... I don't know. I think he's the victim of a racist attack over a long period of time.
I do too. And I also think that she knew exactly who she married when she married him. And there's no excuse. But she will never take accountability for anything she says or does because that's not who she is.
But she got to look like a victim on TV, so it was a good day for Danielle, right?
Yep.
Yep. Win.
Jen and Rishi. Now,
weird.
You all know, if you've been listening to our coverage of this, and I've said this on other people's podcasts as well.
We really can't roll it back.
So I can never roll it back, no. But I stand by it. I think that Rishi was an escort and that he was not modeling at that very nice hotel where he met Jen. I think their arrangement wasn't necessarily commercial. It may, but I think that is the job that he had when they met, particularly judging by, you know, the way that she's described his messages to other women and the contents of his inbox, right? There is a rumor going round that...
I'm just going to unpeel a little throat lozenge, everyone. If you can hear... I was like, I'll try and hide the noise. And then I was like, you know what? Welcome to my world. Here it goes. I'll put it right into the...
Brave. Yeah, so there's a rumor going around that Jen and Rishi barely knew each other, and she wanted to be on the show, and
the producers wanted a younger Jenny and Samir.
I mean, not even necessarily. I don't know the story, but it's very hard for me.
There was a 2-for-1 deal on chickens.
It's very hard for me to believe that, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but he never gave me the impression that he didn't care about her.
No, I'd agree with that. And I think the emotion is all pretty real.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was really pissed off with her through this reunion.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah.
You know, it is not his fault what his mother does. It's Sumit's fault what his mother does, but it's not Rishi's fault. It is a cultural thing. You cannot go against the wishes of your parents. If you don't like that, you're not Indian. I'm sorry. It's just different. Like, we've all learned at least enough from Jenny and Sumit to know that, right? What Sumit constantly did wrong was lie and lie and lie. But actually, Rishi's been pretty candid about this stuff, generally. He's not been 100% forthright, but he hasn't submitted it, right? Fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was kind of annoyed at Jem, for like being cross at the mother for discriminating against her for her age. And
I don't think that Rishi's mother had any intent at any point to disparage Jen at all. I think that in other places in the world, I also want to add the caveat that Sumit and Rishi are from entirely different parts of India, and I'm sure there are many people who are fine with their children marrying whomever they please in India. Okay. I don't know enough about it. All I know is that they're from very different places, and we can't apply Michigan rules to
Fine.
Arizona. I
Fine.
don't know.
Although in this particular case, it is clear that both of the sons, it's a big deal for them to go against their mother's wishes.
Yes, that is a common thread. Now, sorry, before I got distracted. In many parts of the world,
most parts of the world,
in many parts of the world, someone's age is a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of fact in the way that you wearing pajamas and me wearing this shirt right now are matters of fact. They are happening, right? It's just there.
Yeah.
So
and
I don't think
there are consequences to that age. The consequences being that by the time that the parents need taken care of, she might need some taking care of herself. Right? You need someone young and fit and able to do those chores.
Can I finish?
I'm sorry. Yeah, go on.
So what I was saying is, where age is a matter of fact and the culture isn't built on a fear of death or relies on a tremendous industry that rejects death and aging completely, right?
Right.
You can talk about age, and it's not an insult to talk about that person's age. It's just a factual thing. It's not personal, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So Rishi's mother pointing out Jen's age, it's not like when Sumit's mom said, I can't believe you're marrying an oldie. That is personal, and that's disparaging. But for Rishi's mom to say the age gap is too big, she is too old, which she was asked about several times. It's not like she was purposely returning. I think Jen misunderstood that completely, and I was disappointed because I felt like she was turning that into what she wanted it to be.
Yeah, she was applying an American lens to something which wasn't delivered through an American barrel. But it's the grandchildren issue, right?
Sure.
This is not irrelevant. I'm sorry, it's not.
No, but I think...
And it's the caring issue.
Yes, I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and that shit matters. But the mother was very, very clear. In all other regards, she's wonderful.
Yes.
But she's too old. And you know what, Guy? That's okay. We've all bought or not bought second-hand cars where you go, the upholstery is exactly what I want. But...
I'm going to stop you there. Okay, let's leave it there.
Yeah, all right.
Finally, Debbie and Oshama. By the way, if you haven't seen the Reality Gaze brilliant...
Has that dropped?
Coda, yes, to this reunion, please find it somewhere. I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't watched it, but I believe it's on their Instagram and in several other places.
It is the love story to define our age.
Yes, it is.
It is the most romantic, sexual...
Yes, sensual. Sensuous even.
Thing I have ever seen in my life.
Now, what was the figure in the background?
Of Osama.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think someone left it there in the backdrop, like as a little point of this is what an old woman looks like.
I think it was a piece. I don't think it was a woman. I think it was a piece. It was either like a piece of folk art where it's just like, oh, look, this is a crafts person. Like, have you ever...
But let's not forget that Osama's art is complete doggerel.
It's not, he didn't make that, I promise you. But have you ever gone to like a market and it's like this person is like this figure, and sometimes it's an animal, like sometimes it's a pig, playing a saxophone, or like my mom got me a Christmas ornament one year that was a barrister, right? Because I was in law school, and I was like, oh, that's cute.
Right.
So I think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is a crafts person, and he's making a craft.
Oh, is that what you thought? Because to me, it looked like one of the witches from Macbeth over a cauldron.
No.
It was flipping weird, but I don't want to be insensitive. Maybe it was something.
No, I think it was a nice piece of folk art.
Right. Had Blair Witch overtones to me.
Osama had Blair Witch overtones to him. Couldn't see his eyes the entire time. His eyes were either closed or he was squinting for much of that, or it just looked like there was nothing really behind them.
I guess he's not used to the bright lights. I mean, because, you always have to remember, and particularly in a small studio space like that, right?
He wasn't particularly well lit.
No, he wasn't well lit, was he?
He looked like he was in a.
But at least his eyes were in the
somewhere.
same zip code, which is not always the case with him.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we can say that about him because he's not a nice person.
No, he's not a nice person.
What were your thoughts on January 6th, aka Debbie's son, coming in hot, throwing his not inconsiderable weight around, and Osama calling him a dog?
Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? I mean, look, I don't like her son and everything, but I have to say, by the end of that rant, I actually thought he was quite reasonable. I thought he came across as better than he had done before, because it started off with what seemed like thinly veiled racism. But by the end of that rant, he was making some pretty good points, I think.
For that individual situation.
Yeah.
What do you think of Osama's stance that working in law enforcement or working for the government makes you a dog, and that work in general makes you a slave to someone else, and that he has chosen not to participate?
Yeah, that's right.
That.
I'm on Osama's side there. We should all do paintings that look like a 3-year-old's idea of what aliens are, because that is what society really needs. And I'm sorry, I'm not having any of this. His poem at that poetry jam, it was shit. His paintings are shit. The idea that he would have any better life in America as an artist is hilarious to me. He is devoid of any talent whatsoever. But what you have to remember is that, relatively speaking, at least, his parents seem quite wealthy. So what he is actually...
I don't know where you get that from.
They had a nice house. They seemed... Am I wrong?
I think it... I think that... I don't want to say the wrong thing here. I wouldn't consider them to be wealthy.
No, but...
I think they live in a fairly remote region where the housing is probably... They might have that grandfathered in housing that they have in the center of Cairo where...
Maybe, honey, but I suspect not, because in parts of the world like that, you don't get to just be an artist and not have to work, right? He is essentially a trustafarian.
I reject that completely.
Okay.
I think he lives with his parents, and his parents probably both work, and his sister probably works or studies or whatever. And they just don't know what to do with him, which is why they were so excited when he was about to get out of their damn house, because he adds absolutely nothing and takes everything. Yeah. So in that sense, but I don't feel that he comes from money or a place of privilege at all, except for what he's created in his head.
Okay, the privilege he has is that he's incredibly indulged by his family.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I
which is
don't.
a luxury, I think, for some parts of the world.
But the
fine.
day-to-day life
Yeah.
is unglamorous, and I'm not saying that to have wealth you need to be wealthy by Western standards. Okay, I'm saying by Moroccan standards, they're not wealthy. I don't think.
Okay.
Non sequitur, but not unrelated. I was watching a TikTok video or reel or something, and I want to say it was Vice. Maybe it was someone else. They were interviewing women who all appeared to be in sort of maximum maybe 25. And they were asked, what salary would your partner have to achieve in order for you to feel that that's somebody who's making a good salary? Or it might have. I feel like it was what would your partner make, not what would you need to make. But I could have heard that wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
And it wasn't all, white girls from the same socioeconomic background.
Okay, I was going to ask, where was it from? But all right, so it's all over. All right.
I think so. It might have been in a place like New York where there's a little bit of everything, right? Yeah. But the answers were, there was nothing in the 5-figure range. I think the lowest number that anybody quoted was 250,000.
Fucking ridiculous.
And it went up to $500,000, something like that, $250,000. Now, when I first came to this country, no, I'm not going to lie. When I had been, before I really started working, I didn't think about salaries at all because I never had to. Because I was never employable, one.
Okay.
Two, I was never in a job long enough, and now we know why.
Yeah.
To, understand what was possible or what I would need to live or get by, because I was always studying or I was waiting tables, right? I thought, I would probably need $500,000 every year to be comfortable.
Wow.
And I thought that was fascinating, because if young people think that now, and then when they were told that the average, I believe, and forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, I believe the median income in America is $45,000 a year.
Yeah.
They were
a tenth of what these people are.
They were gobsmacked.
Well,
they
how
were
much did they
absolutely shocked. I think they might have been students. I don't know. That's the thing. But I think until you
or is the idea that your partner has to provide like 10 times more than you do?
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's that until you have to think about it, you don't think about it. Like I didn't want to have to think about having to pay an accountant. I never factored it. Like, you're always on my ass about taxes and stuff, right? And I'm like, that's not the world I live in.
Well, only because Poodles told me to keep a close eye on it. I mean, he said very, very clearly, if Michelle's finances aren't in order, you're welcome at any time to look over my record.
I know.
He has not said that. Yeah, so to the point, you're basically saying like Osama just has no idea that you actually do need like an income
I think
to live.
I think it might actually be possible that living in a fairly remote area, in a small community with parents who look after him.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't even have a notional idea of what the job market is like, what the labor force is like.
Or what the expenses of day-to-day life are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
the irony is he sounds a much, and they try to say this, other cast members try to say, you stand a much better chance of being an artist and a poet in Morocco than you ever would if you moved over to the States. Like, dream on.
Especially now that robots are making all the art.
Right. He might be. Do you think maybe he is the robot? Do you think he's like Dali? It's just Osama. Just when you type in your request, Osama just draws a picture and that's what comes up. They're about as good as each other.
I disagree. I've seen some pretty amazing. That Aretha Franklin riding a turtle.
We did enjoy that.
Was very good.
Do let us know the demands you've made of robots and what they have drawn for you.
I'm scared of robots, and I shared this with you earlier, although I think some of our listeners may appreciate this more than you did, just because of context. I listened to a Date with Dateline's anniversary podcast. Congrats to them if they're listening. We're probably not on their radar necessarily, but Josh Mankiewicz and Lean King, Keith Morrison were guests, and they got to ask them questions. The hosts got to ask Keith and Josh questions about things that were maybe not related to the show. And Josh Mankiewicz was asked, what are you most afraid of? And he said robots. And I felt so seen. I am terrified of robots. I don't even like my phone. I don't like our digital assistants. It freaks me out that we have I grudgingly accept these things because they make you happy.
Yeah.
And I consider it a compromise that I'm making,
And I love
that some robot or another is recording me at all times, and that you are consistently seeking out new ways to put robots
in your life,
in my life.
Yeah.
We've gone.
But the lawn has never looked better.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want you all to know he got a robot lawnmower, and when I said I was afraid of it, his response was, just give it a name.
Yeah, give him a name.
Just give it a name.
That's not going to make it better, though, right? That was the wrong move.
Well, then
I think about it.
Then if I get attached to it and it breaks, I'll be like, we gave the car a name.
Yeah.
And now I think we probably have to have that car forever.
Right. Okay.
I mean, we can get another different car, but we can't ever get rid of that one because that one has a name.
Okay. Well, look, we will never get rid of the lawnmower. If it breaks, it can stay with us. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Shall we? That's that.
Mm-hmm.
See you, Toe.
See ya.
See ya. It was all right. It was all right.
Favorite moment of the season and least favorite moment of the season?
I've had no time to think about that in any way.
Okay. Let's leave it then. Listeners, you tell us your peaks and valleys, roses and thorns of the season, okay?
Favorite moment is Debbie and the Donkey.
Yeah, mine too.
Because that was magnificent.
Yeah.
Least favorite, or the moment that annoyed me the most, it's probably Chris. It's probably Chris at the weird pool retreat thing, I think.
Yeah, that was awful.
It was really, really ugly.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of ugly moments. I mean, it surprises me that anything's worse than Danielle, but I think that was probably the worst single moment.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Vanderpump. What is there to say about Muttley's friend and ours, Mr. Dick Dastardly himself?
Loved Muttley.
Love Muttley.
So, what are your thoughts now that you have seen?
Yeah.
And you kind of understand the mechanics, the basics of Scandival. you don't need the assistance of a diagram necessarily.
I mean, there is a bit of me that wants to put up a murder board with lots of bits of string, like
Sure.
showing who slept with whom and when, because it is very confusing.
It is confusing. I've
just assumed that everyone at this point has fucked everyone.
That's not entirely true. It's hard because the cast has changed over the 10 or so years that the show has been on.
Well,
so there were previous cast members. It'll make a lot more sense when we watch a classic episode, but
good.
What are your thoughts so far on how the man at the center of it all, the worm with a mustache, is? How's he comporting himself? How's he coming across?
I think it's going to be taught in like PR schools for years to come of what not to do. I mean, it is an absolute case study in how not to handle something. It's shocking how badly he's... And yet, he's spoken to 101 publicists and everything's been rehearsed, but he's just no good at it. He cannot keep his mouth shut. And the really funny thing is when he opens his mouth, it takes ages for a thought to come out because he's really, really dumb.
Do you think that if he had not talked and if he had like, let's say, do you think that he should have shown up?
I don't know that he had a choice. This is the thing with things like this. I don't know that they have a choice, or B, I guess he's thinking the whole rest of my life depends on staying in this world to some degree, so maybe I can turn it around or whatever. But no, the right thing to do would be to send a message saying, I am complete human garbage, I'm so sorry, and no one needs me there shitting on their day, right? But he didn't do that. Instead, he did the classic thing of turn up and apologize, but the second that apology is interrogated in any way, throw a whole bunch of stuff back at everyone else.
Well, it's that classic Darvo, isn't it? It's the deny, I'm probably getting this wrong, deny, accuse, reverse victim and oppressor.
Right.
Right? So he's been caught out. He's admitted to doing it.
Yeah.
Well, first it was, no, I didn't do it. Then it was, or he just didn't admit to it. Then it was, I didn't do it then. Then it's, I did it, but I only did it because of how horrible Ariana was.
And then it was, I did it, but she knew I was doing it.
Yep. Yeah.
That was my favorite bit. My favorite bit was she did, like, when they're both talking, it's like, but I mean, she knew, right? So we didn't have to tell her.
When he said,
my favorite bit is when then I think she would have wanted us to.
Oh, God.
I think really she'd have been pleased for us.
I'm going to say something potentially controversial.
Yeah.
And look, I have said part of the reason I don't want to wade in on this is because I don't know that I have anything terribly exciting to add.
Right.
And that's true. And I think that people, on balance, probably won't agree with me, but that is okay with me. I think that Rachel is also a victim in this. And I'm speaking as somebody who has been taken in by a fair few and taken advantage of by a fair few charmers myself. I think she, on the other hand, has also learned to be a master manipulator from her castmates. And I think that there is something that happens when you lose your sense of identity. And it's happened to me where you just go into complete self-destruct mode. And I think Rachel is genuinely and honestly someone who had to blow up her life because of the bottomless pit of self-loathing that she has for herself.
Yeah. All right. I think that is one different thing that you can bring to the dialogue, where, to be honest, everyone hates both of them and everything, but like, he's clear, and I agree with you, I think he's clearly the worst of the two of them.
Yes.
Because ultimately, I never think it's the fault of anyone else for cheating with a married person. Right?
Yeah.
It's the married person. They're the one who's married, not you.
Well,
I've often
if you're
thought
close friends,
that is slightly different.
Yeah.
That is slightly different. I just want to make the point that, like, so many of the cast, like, it's James, isn't it? Is
the British one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how he keeps going, yeah, I cheat and stuff, but that was like in my early 20s and I wouldn't do that. She is in her 20s. That's the thing. I think she is allowed to make these kinds of awful mistakes because she's really young.
She's not that young.
Oh, is she not?
No, she's like 28, I think, or 29.
Okay, but wasn't he when he was doing all that kind of stuff? But what I'm saying is that that kind of defense of, yeah, but I've grown up now. It's like, well, in 10 years' time, I'm sure she won't be doing this sort of shit. Is that not fair?
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
I
let the girl make her mistakes.
Look, I categorically reject the actions that were taken.
But she was lied to.
But she was lied to.
I think we need, like, I'm pretty clear on this whole. I'm fairly certain he told her the relationship was open.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
I'm pretty sure he said we have a public relationship for the show.
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
Not that we're open in a kind of, kinky kind of way, right? Like, not that that's their sex lives, but just we're estranged.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
We haven't gone public on it because, the show. But we're barely ever in the house at the same time. We have separate bedrooms, blah, 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 blah. She won't give a shit. It's fine. And also, at the end of this season, I'm probably just going to leave her anyway. So, all of those things that can turn someone's head. I'm 100% sure of that. That doesn't mean that I'm on her side. I think that she still could have, like, found another penis to put inside her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Well, I'll tell. It's not that and I just want to be clear. I'm not on Rachel's side in any way, shape, or form, and I don't condone what she's done. What I'm saying is, I am not now, nor have I ever been, a burn the witch bitch.
Right.
I don't, and that doesn't mean like, oh, you have to always support other women, or you're a bad feminist, or you're a terrible person, or whatever. What I mean by that is, I don't believe in jumping on a bandwagon like this and taking out your pitchforks and assigning the
I don't like
letter.
Public shaming, so
yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
No,
and
I've seen how these things can end, and it's not nice.
No, it isn't. And actually, so look, there's a broadcaster here in the UK who was a very, very popular TV presenter.
National treasure.
Sure. And he has recently been disgraced because it came out that he had an affair with a runner on the show that he presents, and he happened to have met this runner when he was 15.
Yeah.
Lots of numbers have been bandied about, but I believe it's 15.
15. They didn't have a sexual relationship until sometime later.
According to him. They didn't have a sexual relationship.
Apparently no laws were broken, but it's all a bit groomy and gross.
It's gross, and rather than taking any accountability for it or reflecting on how, rather than fucking off, to be honest, he's basically complaining, saying that if he were straight, nobody would care, but because everyone is so homophobic, that's why this is such a big thing. And
there are nuances in this particular story because when he was having this relationship, he was happily married and presenting as straight. But that's another issue. That's
a separate thing. Yeah. And it doesn't matter because what he said was, well, Leonardo DiCaprio dates younger women and no one cares. And and if you've got young people around or sensitive ears that might not want to hear this, pause and kind of clear them out, because I'm going to get a little bit blunt here. There is nothing the British press loves more than an exploited young girl, whether it's a young white English girl, I should say. Whether it's Madeleine McCann, who went missing, or just any old teenager, the press absolutely love it. They're obsessed with it to a disturbing degree. So if this TV presenter had an affair with a runner who he met that was a 15-year-old girl, his house would be burned down.
But the DiCaprio thing was particularly egregious because I'm not aware that DiCaprio has ever groomed a 15-year-old girl and then fucked her when she started working for him. I'm pretty sure that DiCaprio has sex with very successful independent women.
I don't know about that, but
But the ones that he's known for having relationships with.
They're all models.
They're all
fine.
Flipping supermodels. Do you know what I mean? They're not. There's no Me Too power imbalance there.
Right.
And that's what that story is. It's a Me Too power imbalance.
It is.
And I think there is a Me Too power imbalance with Sandoval too.
Absolutely. And thank you for tying that together. But another reason I brought that up is because of Caroline Flack. And because when Philip Schofield, who is the presenter that we're talking about, was interviewed and went through his poor me and my life is ruined and blah, blah, blah. He compared himself to Caroline Flack, who tragically took her own life. I think because she was in a relationship with Harry Styles and got a lot of shit for it.
It's not my world. I avoid this stuff.
I know, but my point is she was dating a younger, I think it was Harry Styles, and I'll have to look it up. Yeah. But she was dating a younger guy, got a lot of shit for it. I think she was fired she wasn't dating a minor, I hasten to add. But the public didn't respond well to it, and she was hounded to the point where it ruined her career, and she tragically took her own life.
Yeah.
And to make that comparison is disgusting. And I think that Sandoval is doing a similar thing.
Oh, he will absolutely pull the "do you want me to kill myself?"
Yeah, do you want me to just die because that's where I am?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But what worries me is that Rachel actually might go there. If the world... Look, we haven't seen part 3 yet.
Right.
Right? We haven't seen how mean Ariana is to her. What I really hope for, I don't think we're going to get it, would be for her to say, You poor, deluded, stupid girl. Do you know what I mean?
I think
hate on him, but don't give her the time. Like, she's done a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think she needs to be demonized for it. And I don't enjoy that. I don't want to see it because it's not nice to see.
It's not nice to see Rachel there, period, because I would put very good money on the fact that she's been heavily medicated and that what people are interpreting as...
You think Schwartz has given her a few of his...
I think that's where he got them from. I just find... And I could be wrong. I find it so hard to believe that she could watch Sheena break down like that and register no emotion on her face.
Unless she was severely medicated.
Unless she's severely medicated or she's a sociopath.
Or she's a sociopath, yeah. And I actually don't know which it is.
I don't either.
No. She seemed very calm when she was walking in there. I would have... I mean... The environment around me would be like your bathtub if it was me about to walk into that. There would be poop everywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would be shitting myself. All I want to say on it really is that for people that I don't really know, Ariana might be the quickest witted person I've ever encountered in a show like this. But even in my normal life, she is so fucking quick with just the right thing to say. It is rare in a show like this that someone that intelligent features. She is remarkably intelligent. What I will say is that just because you are really, really quick with a comeback or a put down or a logical argument or whatever thing, like, she will have quite a miserable life if she stays in that place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, she will. And I don't think that she is going to do that. Sorry.
The last person on TV that I saw who was that quick or competent in an argument or a disagreement was Christine and Sister Wives, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't stay in it. And where Christine was absolutely magnificent was the grace with which she was like,
yes,
see ya, in a graceful way.
But
that is what I want for Ariana too.
I want that too. And I think it hasn't been long enough. It hasn't been anywhere near long enough. She hasn't had enough distance. I think Christine had that separation from Cody and was able to grieve the relationship long before she ended it.
Well, hopefully Ariana can channel all of that into merchandise sales, and some good come out of it.
Really quickly, I need to issue a correction. So Caroline Flack, who used to host Love Island, was awaiting prosecution for allegedly assaulting her boyfriend at the time. She was 40 when she took her own life, and her ex was 27. And she was afraid of being torn down by the press. She didn't date Harry Styles, I don't think. She did. It was rumored that she dated Prince Harry. So I got that mixed up. But my point is, she had done something, and her fear of the repercussions of that were such that she felt that she couldn't live anymore. And right. I think to invoke a completely different case where she didn't groom a child necessarily, or I'm not defending what she did. I'm saying it's really fucking disturbing that we live in a society where somebody could be that afraid of the press and that attached to public opinion and the fear of public vitriol against her that she would feel that that is the only way out.
Yeah, hard agree. Unfortunately, that is the way society is, and the culture of public shaming is such that people want people dead.
Yeah.
They do. They just do. And people won't rest until it happens. That said, savvy scumbags are now aware of that narrative and have started to use that as a way of not having to face the consequences of shitty things they've done. Right? So now people are doing what Sandoval's doing, which is the whole, oh, they want me dead. Oh, you won't be happy until, well, maybe I should. Right? Because then you don't have to be accountable for anything. All I'm saying is, let's get our contempt for this man in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He cheated on his wife with her friend. It's not that unusual. It's pretty gross. But there shouldn't be a death penalty on that. And also, he shouldn't be able to say that he is in fear for his life in any way, whether by his own hand or anyone else, right? You shouldn't hate on him so much that he has that get out clause.
So there is
right? Just call him a dick. Don't go to his restaurant. Because that food looks fucking gross.
Sure. Here's what bothers me. First of all, their business hasn't taken a hit at all.
Yeah.
That place is doing better than ever, apparently.
Right.
What I have a huge issue with is that Rachel keeps releasing to the press information like the FBI is investigating the death threats that have been made against her.
Yeah.
And you don't have to tell the public about that.
No, you don't. That's right.
Okay. And that is, again, perpetuating this. That tells me that there's something really sinister there. I still don't think she needs to be piled on, but that level of needing to still control the narrative and
people
not just shut the fuck up and disappear.
But that's, to that extent...
disappear for a bit, let me clarify.
But the fact that this has become not just a TV show, but like a major social thing, and it's a big story, right? That the inability of people to disengage from social media, essentially, or from these stories is absolutely the narrative of our age. And there is reality, and there's reality how it plays out in social media. And the line between those is so blurred that things don't happen unless they happen on social, and things that happen on social happen in real life, even if they haven't happened. No one really knows anything anymore, but people's inability to just put the phone down is remarkable.
I had to when the news broke about this, I had to put my phone down and put my social media blocker on and whatever, because I was too obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Well, once you get a breadcrumb, you're like, you turn into a pigeon and you just want more bread. Now,
here's the thing. When people say, are you team this or team that? It is okay not to have a team. You don't need an opinion.
That's right.
But we could talk about it for laughs.
Now, Megan, one of our mods, had a very interesting theory, and I'm paraphrasing here just for brevity. Do you think that the reaction and the response to Scandival in America in particular has sort of been a container for the collective female rage based on the continuation of limiting the rights of women in America?
Yes. Yeah, I'm like, women are pissed off, right?
Yeah.
Women are pissed off, and women are right to be pissed off. And it's not for me to tell women where to put that rage, but I wouldn't waste a drop of that gorgeous, wonderful, righteous, magnificent anger on Tom Sandoval. Wasted on the fuckers killing your daughters.
Yeah. I hear that. What I will say is that what I think is constructive about hating Sandoval and getting caught up in all of this is what's healthy about gossip in general, which is it allows you to have conversations that you might not otherwise feel comfortable having. For example, in the office, at a dinner party, at Thanksgiving, right? This is we're so caught up in offending or alienating other people. And this is a safer way to talk about those things.
Yeah, in a way, it's training wheels for giving yourself permission to say you don't like things. Right? In a world where no one can cause offense anymore or say what they think because we're so worried about upsetting people or the apple cart or the people on the apple cart. Never worry about that. Never worry about upsetting anyone. Never worry about offending anyone. Worry about being a bigot and causing offense for those reasons, but never, ever be afraid to say, I am angry about this thing. So if this is a good, training mechanism for people to just fucking let it out, that's cool. Just don't waste that anger, because anger is an energy.
It is, and it's a force for good when it's directed in the right way. Like Maya Angelou said. I can't believe I'm quoting Maya Angelou. No, I think I've talked about this before. There used to be a show on IFC, and I promise I will stop talking after I share this anecdote. There used to be a show, I think, on the Independent Film Channel called Iconoclasts. And Dave Chappelle, who I know it's not okay anymore, but Dave Chappelle was interviewing Maya Angelou and kind of talking with her. And one of the pearls of wisdom that came out of that filmed conversation is she said, it's, and I'm paraphrasing again, it's good to be angry unless that anger turns into bitterness. Don't become bitter, because anger is a motivator. Anger is an energy.
Oh, anger's a movement. You're right.
Bitterness is a poison.
Well, bitterness is accepting that you're angry about something and it will not change. But anger should be a road to change.
I don't think bitterness is... I think bitterness is the opposite of acceptance.
Oh, but no. Bitterness is accepting that no matter how angry you are, you're stuck in it, regardless. That's when we become bitter. When we don't think anything will get better.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah? But anger should actually be a road through that to a place where we no longer need to feel angry.
Yeah.
That's the point of anger. The point isn't to sit in the anger. That's bitterness, right? The whole point of rage and anger and rebellion and revolution is for things to be improved. I used to get accused of being cynical a lot. Hey, I was a critic. It was kind of my job. But for me, cynicism is just the flip side of idealism. The only reason I'm negative about things is because I know they can be much better, and I want and expect them to be much better. I'd be a hell of a lot quieter about the world if I was okay with it the way it is. And I'm not okay with it the way it is. So, absolutely, Tom Sandoval, worm with a moustache. Worm with the moustache, fuck him, complete dick, but also a wonderful opportunity to see, some righteous anger playing out on screen in front of us, right? And a woman that I wasn't aware of before, who is rocketed into, my current top 50 fucking shit hot, super bright, brilliant women. So, delighted to have seen that.
Yeah. And in a world where you can be an Ariana or a Christine Brown, don't be a Robine.
No, don't be a Robine.
And don't be a Rachel.
Don't be a Rachel.
Okay?
Yeah.
I be Michelle.
I be Robin. And we will. No, we really will this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. See you soon.
See you soon.